What's going on, collective listeners? On today's episode, we have John Bloom. And you know what? I got to stop saying like he's a friend of mine or something. I think by being the host of this podcast, one of the things that I've noticed the most is that all my friends are strength coaches. Like, I didn't like really like think of that beforehand. And obviously, that's the case for most people listening. But it was just like, I, I know more strength coaches than I thought I did for some reason. But John is a fantastic friend. We work together at Texas Tech and a really, really high level strength coach. And I think he does an amazing job with his teams. And I think you guys are really going to appreciate hearing about his process a little bit. You know, we cover everything from his process to working with Darby Rich at Texas Tech, who we both worked with. And his body transformations are incredible. Overall, just a lot of really good information with it here. So I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you for listening. What's going on, collective listeners? On today's episode, we have John Bloom of Oral Roberts University working with men's basketball there. John, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course, man. Always glad to talk to the VG.
Hey, so I need to preface this. John and I work together at Texas Tech, and it feels weird actually even calling him John right now because he's forever known as the Blooming Onion. His last name is Bloom, and I'm forever known as VG or Vanilla Gorilla because of who we worked with, the men's full-time strength coach at Texas Tech, Darby Rich. Loved to hand out nicknames, and so I felt like it was only fair I gave John Bloom the Blooming Onion nickname. So if you hear us call each other that, that's just it's a natural part of the process. Just ignore it. All right. Well, I'm really excited to have you on as a guest. You're somebody I look up to within the strength and conditioning realm from basketball because of your knowledge base and for us being like the exact. I mean, how old are you again?
26.
Yeah, right. You're younger than
Yeah.
me. Okay, and you're 50 times smarter than me. So
Nah.
I admire it. And I think the podcast guests are gonna be really excited to hear what you have to say. Not even just related to basketball, but just strength and conditioning in general. So uh, thank you for coming on. And can you just give us a little breakdown of your history in strength and conditioning, and then what's brought you to your current position?
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me on. Kind of for me, how it first started for strength and conditioning was really middle school through high school. I had a strength coach that was really great, Alex Pena, one of the biggest mentors in my life. And, really that's when I started to fall in love with strength and conditioning, was working with him. And then my senior year, I got to be his assistant for my PE class. So I worked with the middle school PE, kind of helping him assisting. And then in that summer before I went to college, I was his assistant for the high school, middle school summer program. So that was kind of where I got a first start and really, start to see what it's like to coach and be involved with strength and conditioning. But then I went to Abilene Christian to play football, and I played a year of football there. But then after the spring, decided to stop playing, and that's when my sophomore year I started working with the strength staff at ACU. Brandon Decker, he was in charge of men's basketball, volleyball there. He was my mentor there that I started working with, and I wouldn't be where I am today without him. He's an incredible coach and mentor, and taught me so much and gave me so much room to grow as a coach and responsibility to grow as a coach. I worked sophomore through senior year there at ACU, and during my undergrad, and eventually got started taking over programs and getting that experience before I even graduated. And then once I graduated, I stayed on there for about another year and a half, and then I went to Weber State, where I was in charge of men's basketball, women's basketball. After that, I went to Texas Tech, worked with Darby with men's basketball there, where we worked together. And after that, now I'm here at Oral Roberts.
One of the things I really appreciate about you and I respect is you always are looking for opportunities to get better, right?
Hmm.
And I think you have just put in the time, like, I mean, but I didn't even know your senior year of high school, you were helping assist with programs. I mean, you're already starting it at
Yeah.
such a young age. Is that how you feel like you've learned the best throughout your career?
Yeah, I think being thrown in the fire and like having to do things that maybe I wasn't necessarily ready for has been the biggest growing thing for me. So actually, I think the biggest opportunity that I had was after my sophomore year at ACU when I started working with Brandon Decker. Through that first year, I assisted him with basketball and volleyball. And then I went home during the summer, and I got to be fully in charge of the basketball and soccer teams for my high school, programming, running those. And then I also had a group of about 10 junior college slash Division I, Division II basketball guys that trained from like May to August, just straight with those guys. And really doing that was probably one of the biggest growing uh, experiences for me. Just, I didn't have really anyone there to tell me, oh, you need to do this or this. I was really just on my own for 3-4 months, having to learn, okay, this is how I can apply what I just learned to the past year at ACU. Now I got a program. Now I got to, okay, now basketball starts getting involved. How can I adjust things and learn to adapt to the sport of what's happening? And that was huge for me of going through that process, because then I got much more comfortable programming and running a team. And then my junior year at ACU, that's when I started to get to run. Okay, I get to run the football red shirts. I get to run some of volleyball, and then leading into other sports. And after that experience,
No, I mean, that's fantastic, and exactly like you said, being thrown into the fire
yeah.
is how you develop that skill. You know, how are you able to remain confident during those times, though? I mean, especially at such a young age,
hmm
you are going through the experience that a lot of strength coaches kind of go through, either when they're senior year of college or going into their GA. That's really the time where they get to start running their own groups. At that young of an age, how do you remain confident?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is always times where, for me, I'm always questioning, is this the best way to do it? And there's times where I'm not confident that, where, I'm going back and forth between things and, thinking maybe I should have done this. But I think when you're constantly trying to find the best way, and then you do have people like Brandon Decker, Alex Pena, and Darby now, other people in the field that I can reach out to and bounce ideas off, right? That just, helps guide you a little bit. But I think if you can always have, the aspect of caring deeply for your athletes and having that relationship and trying to do what's best for them and see them accomplish their goals. If you have that part down and you're trying to do everything you can, program wise, coaching wise, to be the best, I think you're going to go really far, even if, you're still trying to figure things out.
Absolutely, the deep level of care.
Yeah.
That is what the athletes. That's all they want to see, really.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, they'd like to see improvements and they like to see themselves getting better, but at the same time, uh, I think a lot of stuff can be done as long as they know that you genuinely just care about them.
No doubt.
No. Uh, so you're at Oral Roberts now.
Yep.
This is a new position for you. How's everything going?
It's really good. I got here right at the very end of April. And so kind of a new position where I'm the director also, so that's something new, which has been a lot, definitely a growing experience, but learned a lot, and it's definitely enjoyable being able to run that. And I have a great staff here that just absolutely kill it with all their teams, so it makes my job really easy. But then I work with an incredible head coach, Russell Springman, for basketball, that he was the associate head coach here, and then the previous staff left, and he took over, and he's an incredible person, incredible coach. He's really the reason that I really chose to come here. So I mean, it's been really good. Now we're 4 days away from tip off, so it's been good coming up to game time now.
Man, I cannot wait to start playing some games.
Yeah,
I am
yeah.
sick of
Oh
practice.
yeah,
I'm ready to roll.
yeah.
I mean, my
I
goodness,
feel you
we've
there.
got women starting up on Monday, and then men starting up on Tuesday.
Nice.
So I'm ready to roll. One thing for the listeners, this is how humble of a person John is. Okay, I'm finding out at the same time as everybody else is listening that he is actually the director of strength and conditioning there. When he called me and told me he was at Oral Roberts, it was a very coy and yeah, I'm gonna work with basketball at Oral Roberts. I had no clue you were the director, so I have to ask about this. I
Yeah.
mean, first of all, well, I mean, there's multiple questions actually have that come to mind. My first would be, how do you balance being the director when you also have to, look at the organization of basketball, and how they typically treat their strength coaches is, you're expected to be there at almost everything,
hmm
and you're supposed to be this like specialized strength coach just for them. How do you balance being the director on top of that?
Well, like I said, like I've everyone in my staff, they're awesome. They're really good coaches, really great people. So like I don't feel like I have to in any way micromanage them to make sure they're, doing what they need to do for their teams. Like I know that they're all trying to do the absolute best job they can. And, that just lets me give them the autonomy to do what they need to do. I don't need to check their programming or write programming for other teams or observe other teams. I have full confidence that they're going to do what they need to do. And then, all of us just work as a whole in terms of scheduling, flow of everything that like we're always going to help each other out and make sure that we help each other with space and timing. So I think it just, works well with all of us working together that, I can fully put my focus into basketball while making sure and being confident that the other teams are going to be taken care of to the highest level.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got a great staff. You got
Yeah.
you got budgets to balance
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would not do well with the budget right now. Exactly because I wouldn't see it as a budget.
Yeah.
I would see it as, all right, here. How much do I think I could go over on this so I could get the sweetest bar possible or something?
Yeah.
Something
Well,
weird.
one thing Darby taught me, or he would talk about it a lot, because at Tech, right, they just built the Womble facility that, we just moved into. Were there, and I'd be like, when they just built this brand new facility, I'm not going to try and ask for a whole bunch of new stuff or change it all. In the first couple of years, right? And so we just built this brand new facility that we moved into this summer. So I'm not trying to ask for a bunch of new stuff when they just, they just built an incredible facility. So it's awesome.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. What I thought was so funny about the Womble was it was obviously designed by two different strength coaches than myself and Darby.
Hmm.
I came in like right as they were finishing up construction. Darby came in as it was already constructed. So, we walked in and I was like, it was just so funny to me because it was like these two coaches designed a beautiful weight room. I mean, it looks fantastic, but a lot of stuff that I didn't really use
Yeah.
or Darby didn't necessarily use either. So it just cracked me up because we both just kind of slid right in there, and I feel bad for the coaches who didn't really get to use that
Yeah.
weight room that much. Well, the other question I had about this is, you are 26, and it's a young age. I don't think you carry yourself like you're 26. I think most everybody would agree. And just talking to you, I thought you were 35. How does it feel being a director that young?
You know, it, I think it kind of comes down to like thinking about it the same way when I was working at ACU and I was, running some of those teams when like a lot of times the athletes were older than me when I was first starting out. But I think when you approach what you do with a high standard and you do it, you do it at a high level and the athletes and then my staff knows that I'm trying to do everything I can to care for them and do the best for them while I do the best job I can. I think there's going to be a respect there and the age doesn't really, matter where like they're not going to respect me because I'm younger. I think if you do a really good job and give respect to the people around you, that you can accomplish whatever you need to accomplish.
Absolutely. I knew that would be the answer I'd get, but I was just curious. Do you have people who work for you who are older than you? And has it been any type of awkward or any type of issue?
Uh, quite a few of them are older. Some of them just like a year or two, but then one a bit older. But no, I mean, I think, really, like I said, like all of them are awesome. And we're always just trying to do anything we can to help each other out, learn from each other, grow with each other, and have a mutual respect with everything we do. So really, there's been no problems there.
Nope, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. And so you're a football guy, right? I mean, I was a football guy myself. We're both now in
Hmm.
basketball. What caused this kind of movement to basketball for you?
Well, so I did play basketball like my whole life, like kindergarten through my senior year of high school. I played basketball and probably liked basketball more than football. I was just better at football. My, not tall enough for basketball. I stopped growing
I
about
get
eighth grade.
it. I get it.
So I love basketball. I love playing. And then really, so after I stopped playing at ACU, when I came back my sophomore year, there was a new football head coach, and the previous head strength coach kind of left for a different job. So Brandon Decker, he had been an assistant that had worked with me when I was an athlete, and he was the only remaining person on staff that was still left there. So he was the one I kind of came to talk to about, trying to work or intern with them. And he had been put in charge of men's basketball and volleyball there. So kind of just that influence, I think, especially at first, of him being my mentor in men's basketball, kind of being the main sport we worked with and really being in that. And then kind of just the opportunities that grew from that, along with loving basketball, just kind of led me to where I am now, I think.
And I don't know. To me, you're a basketball guy, right? I mean, just I think the way when we've had our conversations in the past about how you approach strength and conditioning for basketball specifically, I think it's what I appreciate about it, and not to knock football strength coaches whatsoever, but I do feel like it has to be very cerebral, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's this process where you have 15 guys, and you have to think about how do I get the what's best for each of them,
Yeah.
right? And how do I focus my training on what they specifically need?
Yeah.
And versus football, where you do have assistant strength coaches, but at the same time, like it's 1 to 20. Typically, and that's
Mm-hmm.
at a really, really good staff.
Yeah.
That's like a Power Five. You got a crazy budget. You can hire whoever you want. I mean, some schools are out there doing it with one guy. So that's 1 to 120 right there. Uh, I think it can be difficult to develop as strong of relationships with those players and to specialize as much with those players
Mm-hmm.
because it's just no fault to the strength coach. It's just the job doesn't lend itself to that. It's not easy to do those things. So I'm glad to see you in
Thank-
basketball because I think you fit very well within that role.
Yeah, I think that's another reason I like basketball is, like kind of like you're talking about, like being with a smaller group of group, and like we're with them all the time, 24/7. Whether it's meals, post practice, lifts, you're pretty much there. Especially once you start getting on the road, you're around them all the time. So you really can, like you're saying, develop those relationships, but also like holistically go into their development, like from all areas, nutrition, extra recovery, extra lifts on the road, game day lifts with, low minute guys. You get to be involved with everything on a more minute level. I think where you can be so involved in those athletes' development and the development as a team as a whole, I think, as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, I just know everything that's going on with each person on the team,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I know, like, oh, yes, you struggled with patellar tendonitis
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
Like it just makes it easier to do your job because you know exactly what to prescribe for them instead of having to have more of a conversation on a daily basis.
For
It like
sure.
feels like to me it kind of clicks a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's easy to just roll right into what you need to do.
Yeah. Like I used to, when I was at Weber, I did like Google Forms. I had this whole kind of dashboard. I had showed you that before at Tech, and I stopped doing kind of further on into the year. I stopped doing the wellness questionnaires because it's like I'm with these guys all day, every day. Like I know exactly how they feel. Like I don't have to do this right now anymore.
Absolutely. Plus, everybody's a six.
Yeah.
On anything, no matter what, it's a six. How hard was the workout? Six. How good was your sleep last night? Six. Yeah, it's funny because we were actually meeting with a software company this morning for programming,
Hmm.
and he was like, "And you can do questionnaires if you want." And I was like, "I sure don't." I was like, I'm not going to use them one time because everybody's going to be a six. And exactly like you just said. I also know where these guys are at. Like when people are being truthful to you. When people are trying to tough things out, and I think it lends you as a coach to be more involved with the team and to just get a better product out of the
Yeah.
players for sure.
And each morning, like the guys come in for breakfast, and that's become a great time for me where I can just be like, because we lift and practice in the afternoon, so in the mornings I just as they're coming in, like, hey, how you feeling today? So I can get a kind of a glimpse into how the team as a whole is feeling, soreness wise, fatigue wise, and that could influence conversations with coach or how I'm programming, but most of the time based off the way we're periodizing practice, whatever, I kind of know probably how they're going to feel coming in.
Yeah, I mean, what you scrimmage for 45 minutes, you go live for 45 minutes the day before. Usually, they're not going to feel too
Yeah,
great
yeah.
the next day coming in. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Well, you also gave me an alley oop into my next question. I appreciate it. You spoke about the deep level of care that you have for your athletes. What are some ways that you feel like you demonstrate that with your group?
I think kind of the going above and beyond beyond things that you have to do, and then the things that they know you don't have to do. So like kind of here, like we've talked about before a little bit, is cooking breakfast, right? Kind of influenced by some guys like Pat Lewis. Like I got a Blackstone griddle that I'll wheel out each day, and I'll cook breakfast out there, and they'll come in and get it each morning. And then just kind of I'll make smoothies for post practice each day, along with electrolytes in college and pre-practice, and then another kind of drink between, and kind of those things that they know don't have to be there. When you do those things, they know that you care and are willing to do extra for them. And I think they just give a little bit more back when you do that.
Absolutely. And now my only question for you is, are you sure you didn't get that Blackstone for yourself?
No, trust me, I cook on that every morning. I don't need to do any extra on there.
Yeah, I don't blame you whatsoever.
There is sometimes some leftover eggs or something that I'll grab once everybody's been through in the morning. So that'll be
I
my
have
post lift fuel right there sometimes.
I have zero doubt that the Bloomin' Onion is sneaking some extra eggs after his lifts. Oh man. Well, I mean, but that's one of the things I really respect about you is the things that you're willing to do that go above and beyond, like you said. And that's where, again, another reason why basketball has been so beneficial to me is because it allows you to do those things,
Yeah.
right? You're not spending time going through 120 lift cards, or especially when you have one team. It's really nice to be able to do those things that go above and beyond
Hmm.
for your individuals. One thing that I do want to talk about too is your body transformations for your teams are really good. If anybody wants to check it out, you can go to his Instagram. We'll make sure we get the handle at the end. But I mean, your players have seen significant transformation, especially just over the summer.
Hmm.
In the time that you initially posted them, I mean, I was really impressed. And so, what are the biggest things that go into those for you?
I think the first key is that our head coach Russell Springman cares about the weight room and emphasizes it to the players a lot. Like as like that support just helps with everything we're trying to do so much, right? Because if you don't have that support, it's hard to get done what you need to get done. And it just when the person that determines their playing time says like, "Hey, I need you to get to this weight," or "I need you to make this type of change," like a lot of times that's going to make them care about it a lot more and make it more of an emphasis for them. So I think that was the first key for me, was having that support. But then I think then it's just a combination of, the athletes working hard and trying to do what we're doing in a smart way, but work really hard and have, level intensity there. And then just trying to have the other side of nutrition and supplementation and that aspect with it. And just, with all of that, it's about consistency rather than, going all out one day, man. It's just, we got to do those small little actions every day over and over, and just stack days over and over. And I think that's what it was about. Where, like, for example, like kind of my main weight gain guys, we would, in the summer, we'd have breakfast, we'd lift, and then have a little break, and then we'd practice. So we were kind of done midday. And then, every single day, okay, at between 3 to 4, they got to come in and they're getting, an extra meal, extra, shakes and stuff, and just kind of consistency of just having to do things like that. Guys coming in for extra lifts or extra condition if they're trying to, go that way, just, it's just those small things that build up and just stacking those small habits over and over and over.
Absolutely. And when we talk about transformations on my team, there's guys have done a great job, and they've worked super hard. But my favorite thing is the weight gain guys finding out that they're not eating nearly enough.
Yeah.
And so it cracked me up because one of our players is like, "Coach, I've been eating hella," and I was like, "All right, like let's find out what hella
Yeah, like
is."
write it down for
So
a
we went,
week.
yeah, yeah. I was like, write it down, find out, and I already knew hella was going to be my breakfast.
Hmm.
So, we go in to one of our post practice meals, and we're sitting there, and loads up like it was like 2 pieces of pork tenderloin, like a small scoop of mashed potatoes and green beans. And I
Yeah.
was like, "That's hella," And he
Hmm.
was like, "Oh, absolutely." Like, dude, I eat this like at least 4 times a day.
There's a
And I was
reason
like, "So,
you
all right."
weigh not
There's a
enough.
reason you haven't gained weight. there's there's an exact reason. So we call it Connor Eats now.
Mm,
If you're below your weight, you got to sit with me at
nice.
at training table, and we'll have a nice sit down meal, and it's usually going to be 2 plates full of food.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, I'm very fortunate to have the support from my coaching staff as well too.
Hmm.
I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? Is you can echo it over and over and over again, and you can develop a good buy-in, but you're not going to be able to reach everybody.
Yeah.
Or at least to the level where they're going to make massive changes, right? Like there's people on the team who I know will listen to me, but they're not going to, take it to complete heart. It's not going to be this live or die by it type deal. But then all of a sudden, their position coaches are coming up and saying, "Hey, this is really important for you to
Yeah.
do as well." And that might be a coach that they have a better relationship with, which
Hmm.
is totally fine. But that support allows those players to actually make those changes, right? Because it's like, okay, if I'm hearing it from Connor and I'm hearing it from Coach X, then I probably should make these changes. I probably should do the things that I need to do
Yeah.
to improve. And so the coaching staff support is massive. Uh, One of the things I love too is your guys do work hard, and you had a video published over the summer, and I'll never forget. It was everything was great. Great weights, everything looked fantastic, and then right in the middle of it, they put like a warm up set of a kettlebell squat with like it was tempo and warm up, so it was like one of those like PT
Yeah.
kettlebells basically, and I immediately had to call you. I just knew like right away. I was like, I have to make fun of him for this. And you tried to defend it, but I feel like I roasted you pretty good
And
for that
that was the school's
one.
video. That was just, before we squat, a lot of time we'll do some eccentric goblet squat prep. So that wasn't the main lift or anything.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Who knows? Um, you know, how with obviously nutrition is a big piece to this, right?
Hmm.
For the transformations, you mentioned a lot. You mentioned collagen. You mentioned extra meals. Things that really kind of help these players get that specific edge. Where do you typically get your nutrition information from? For any strength coaches here who are listening that may not be working with a dietitian, or maybe in a similar situation where you are, where they're expected to make significant changes to the players' bodies and make significant transformations, where
Hmm.
do you typically find the best resources of what's best to use for the players?
One of the first best things I did was the Precision Nutrition Level 1 course, back when I was at ACU. That was a really great foundation of knowledge, and they do a great job of teaching like how do you actually make change with it too, right? Because you can have a lot of knowledge, but if you can't communicate that and create behavior change, it doesn't really matter. So that was a really good starting point. And I think one person that's been a huge influence is Ryan Darrow with Designs for Sport. He's kind of the rep I work with there, and he works with colleges, and so that's who I use for a lot of our supplements. But he's also been a huge mentor and just mentoring me on the best way to use supplements, the best supplements, and even going beyond just nutrition, information and education. He's been huge with that and is always so supportive. Um, and then I think then also seeing like other strength coaches within college basketball, how they do things. Guys like, Alan Bishop, has influenced a lot of people. He's been an influence for me, and Pat Lewis, another guy, in terms of how to, especially when you don't have all the resources of Power Five, how can we, with a little more work, provide still a high level of nutrition. So that's kind of been, and obviously just reading different books and education info around there too.
And Pat Lewis is a high level dude too,
Yeah,
man. I mean, his transformations are
yeah.
fantastic. I mean, he's absolutely killing it. You could also cheat and take the way I did, which is get engaged to a dietitian. That's the one that helps me out the
Yeah.
most. But if you are not as fortunate as me, then I would highly recommend the precision nutrition course, like you said. And so you're a constant continuing education person as well. Uh, I feel like you are the definition of a forever learner, right? And always asking questions and trying to find the appropriate or the best ways to train your teams. What are your biggest recommendations, or what are some of the best continuing education pieces that you've undertaken that you would recommend to coaches listening?
Um, I've done a lot of things. I think book wise, like I'm always gonna be reading books, and that's been a huge influence on me. I think some of the ones that had huge influence, especially with looking at how we actually impact the sport, like Game Changer by Fergus Conley was a huge one when I was first starting out. That really influenced how I thought about things. Um, One really great book for like strength training and all that is the Agile Periodization book by Mladen Jovanovic. That's a really great resource there. Um, some great courses. I think the Strength Coach Fundamentals courses by Kier Winham-Flatt. Those were really great courses that cover you can kind of all of it, everything you need to know about being a strength coach. And it's hard to say just real specific things because there have been so many things that have influenced and gone into it. But I think, like you talked about, just continuing to find ways to learn and see how to better do things, whether that's talking to people, seeing how other people are doing it, while still taking in information from books, podcasts, courses. But the biggest thing for me that I found that helps me is when I actually have to apply that into something, whether it's putting it into how I'm actually coaching, or maybe I'm gonna give myself some project with a deadline where I remember at ACU I did this a couple of times where I'm going to do a presentation on some aspect and present it to the rest of the staff. And that really drove me to go deep on a subject and put together and synthesize it to where I actually have to communicate it. Because I think when you can communicate and teach, that's when you really know something. Because sometimes I fall into it where I'm just taking in a lot, but not actually doing anything with it. And that's not going to lead to long-term learning.
That's really interesting. I don't think I've ever really heard of anybody doing that with their continuing education
Mm.
pieces, forcing themselves to give presentations. I mean, I feel like that has to, like you said, I feel like that has to give you an even deeper level of understanding of the information you're trying to get
Yeah.
across.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. What are you currently undertaking? What's your newest venture for your continuing education?
Well, one of the biggest ones I'm doing right now, and it's actually not like strictly strength and conditioning, but it's called High Flow Coaching through the Flow Research Collective, and it's this program they have. And I don't know how familiar you are with like flow states from if you heard of Steven Kotler, kind of flow states, kind of like being in the zone, right? That optimal experience where you're at your very best, right? In sport, you might find it through being locked in, like you're making everything like you're fully present in the moment, right? Kind of looking at that of, how we can tap into that with athletes, with, staff working and just, being able to perform at a much higher level. So that program is kind of looking at, how we can do that, but then how we can coach it and really coach with people. So it's been a really incredible program where we have, weekly 2-hour sessions where we come in as a group, but there's also a bunch of resources we do throughout the week. So that's been huge for me. And in it, we have to do a big project that at the end of the 12 weeks we have to present. So kind of like I was talking about, like it's making me really go in and put together resources and figure out how it can all work together and how I can communicate that and really learn the knowledge I'm trying to go into.
I was about to say you're going to have to give me your presentation.
Yeah,
So if you didn't have to give one, then I would absolutely require you to give me one,
yeah,
and then it would make me better as a coach.
for sure.
Uh, one of the last things I wanted to ask you about was, obviously, a strength coach like Darby Rich is influential in a lot of people's
Hmm.
lives. I mean, he was influential for me, and you worked directly underneath him, so you got even more of the Darby experience.
Yeah.
What were some of the biggest things that you learned from Darby at your time at Texas Tech?
I think some of the biggest things with Darby is how to impact a program, a basketball program specifically, beyond just how you impact your athletes in the weight room, right? Because I think when you're trying to bring value to a program, and I tell this to like recruits when we're talking, I'm like, I don't want to just have influence in the weight room because then my impact's just in the weight room, right? I want to impact the court. I want to impact the program, and that's how we're going to, be more valuable to the program, right? So in the ways that, I think, Darby influenced me a lot on how we can, impact the way coaches doing practice, or sometimes just how are we doing the schedule? When are we making them come in? How are we doing things on the road, right? Sometimes those logistical things that, they actually make a huge difference if we just change them and tweak them a little bit. Um, I think another thing with Darby, with right, as we know, like he played basketball at a high level, and then he was a basketball coach, right, Division I before becoming a strength coach. So he has a great knowledge base in both areas in terms of how to influence that and how to have those conversations with athletes and basketball coaches. So I think he really helped teach me and how to get buy-in with those athletes and with the coaches, and how we can, not necessarily even if we're not even changing what we're doing, but just painting it in a different picture or creating an image of how is this going to affect basketball for the athletes, how we can have those conversations with the coaches so that we're always speaking the same language rather than just being a strength coach and try and talk scientifically in your own way, right? You can still do what you need to do, just communicate in a little different way to make everybody in the room care about it a little bit more.
That was so. What was so interesting to me, I think, was seeing how he integrated basketball into the weight room,
Hmm.
and how he made it very clear about how this lift was going to help you on the court,
Yeah.
and it wasn't just like, oh, we're doing vertical jumps so you can get rebounds
Yeah.
more. Like
Mhm.
it was very very high level things. Now some stuff looked absolutely wild to me, and the more I'm in basketball, I'm like, all right, I get it, but but I mean the signature Darby is the two purple bands, X
Step
across the
ups.
chest, and the step up with the
Oh
med
yeah.
ball. Yep, 100%. If you see that, that means Darby Rich is his stamp on that lift.
Hey, some of those workouts was a workout for us. Three of those
Oh
lifts in
yeah,
a row, man. That was tiring on us.
when you guys were butt to butt doing the lateral raises,
Whew.
the back down lateral raises.
Those were tough days.
Oh yeah, I remember he said this. He said this is the number one thing that's ever given him ingrown toenails before.
Yep.
One thing that I really appreciated about Darby was, he when I took the job at App State, he took me out to dinner. We had a great dinner together, but then at the end, like he gave me advice about how to get better,
Hmm.
and I really appreciated it because I mean, obviously, this is somebody who's been in the game for a really long time. So anytime you give valuable information like that, I think it's invaluable. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't put a price on that. But then at the same time, somebody who has been doing this for so long turns to me and asks, "Hey, what are some things that I can do better as well too?"
Hmm.
And that's what really impressed me. And so I think as a staff, you guys worked really well together because you both had that mindset of always improving and always doing better.
Yeah.
So it was impressive. And then we had the women's staff over here watching Gorilla versus Brown Bear, who would win in a fight videos.
But yeah, I
You guys
definitely
blew us
agree.
out of the
I
water.
definitely agree with that about Dara. I mean, he, like you said, like he's been in college basketball, strength and conditioning as long as about anyone, right, and doing it at the highest level. But he's always looking for knowledge from other people, and he's going to be very confident in what he does, but he's not afraid to change what he does at all, if he thinks that there can be something that we can do better. And he was always asking me, how could we do this better, and always open to new ideas. So I think that's part of why he's at the level he's at, and able to stay there, is because he's willing to continue to grow always.
Absolutely. And when he was looking for your position, he said the number one thing he wanted was somebody who knew technology, knew all the things that he
Hmm.
didn't realize, so that the person could teach him as well. And obviously you guys use the velocity based training units a massive amount. And I mean, I think it really just enhanced the program, all the technology that you guys use on top of it. So, well, John, thank you. I keep it's freaking me out calling you John. I got every single time I talk to you, it's Blooming Onion. But Blooming Onion, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really enjoyed our conversation. If any of our listeners wanted to reach you, what would be a good place? Like social medias, email, anything like that?
Yeah, I think my email on the website ORU, I think it's jbloom@oru.edu. And then I think Twitter and Instagram, I think it's at johnbloom30. So any of those.
There we go. Are you still posting your reels?
It's been a while.
You're letting me
It's
down,
been
man. You're letting me down. The only thing I ever taught you how to do was how to make an Instagram reel.
You taught me some jujitsu,
This is true. I did teach you a little bit of jujitsu.
but
So
then you left
jujitsu
and I
and social
stopped.
media. And then, yeah, immediately stopped. I remember I called like 2 weeks later. I was like, "You still doing jujitsu?" He said, "No shot, no shot." So amazing. Well, John, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh man, it was awesome. I appreciate you having me here.
Absolutely.